Hello there, Steve-Os, and welcome along to this week's episode of the movie wrap-up right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. I have got a few movies to talk about in this episode, so without further ado, let's start rolling the titles and get through this week's movie wrap-up.
You're watching Steve's Movie Wrap-Up, episode 80, right here on my YouTube channel, SteveOfficial. The first movie we'll be reviewing in this episode is Living with Chucky.
I tell you what, right, to start off this movie wrap-up video, right, I watched a documentary. It was actually a documentary called Living with Chucky. Now, what's ideal about this, if I just take the poster off for a second, right, what's ideal about this is I'm actually wearing a Chucky t-shirt, and even on the back as well, I don't know how well you can see, but on the back is also a picture of Chucky as well, which is from Bride of Chucky or Seed of Chucky. So, you know, anyway, his Bride and Seed era was actually pretty insane. But if I move back to where I was and put the poster back up as well where that was, obviously I've watched Living with Chucky, which I gave 2.5 stars over on Letterboxd, released back in 2022/2023, and is available to watch on Shudder in the UK, and interestingly also available to watch on Prime Video in the UK as well. I found this documentary rather an interesting watch. They had interviews with stars of the Chucky franchise such as Jennifer Tilly, Brad Dourif, and his daughter Fiona Dourif, the writer of the franchise Don Mancini, and they had interviews with Billy Boyd, who voiced Glenn/Glenda in Seed of Chucky, as well as the child actor who played Andy Barclay as well from the movies franchise. Other interviews they did in this documentary were from Lynn Shay from the Insidious franchise, and Marlon Wayans as well, who horror fans will know from the Scary Movie franchise. Now, what is interesting about this is the first part of the documentary, they take a look at the franchise as a whole, from the first Chucky movie that was titled Child's Play to the more recent movie in the franchise, which is Cult of Chucky. I will admit now, while a lot of the people interviewed in this documentary grew up with this franchise and have loved this franchise as a kid up until now, for me, even though I was aware that Chucky existed when I was a kid, I didn't watch the movies itself until I was in my late teens. Just like other horror franchises, I was too frightened to watch this franchise as a kid, and used to have nightmares of this doll when I was a kid as well. But now I can watch these movies without being frightened and without having nightmares too. What is interesting as well about this documentary, we also hear from the interviewer who interviews all these stars of the franchise, as the interviewer is the daughter of one of the puppeteers of the Chucky films, and we hear about what her childhood was like, knowing that her father was working away a lot on these movies, and we also hear from the man himself as well, and how hard it would be to miss special occasions, like for example missing his daughter's birthdays, for example, because he was working away. What I also love about this documentary, not only do we see some behind the scenes footage from the franchise as a whole, but as mentioned, Brad Dourif is interviewed alongside his daughter Fiona Dourif, who plays Nika in Curse and Cult of Chucky, and I think it is safe to say we can see their father/daughter bond shine whilst they are being interviewed and discussing their thoughts on this franchise. Is this a documentary that I would recommend horror fans to watch? Definitely so. It's rather interesting, and you do also learn something new about this franchise as well. I definitely feel as though I learned a lot about this franchise that I didn't know before, for sure. Is this a documentary I can see myself watching again? Yes, definitely so. I am planning to revisit the entire Chucky franchise soon, from the first Child's Play film to Cult of Chucky. I may even watch the 2019 Child's Play film and the Chucky TV series as well, especially as it has been a while since I last watched this franchise. But Living with Chucky is streaming now on Shudder and Amazon Prime Video here in the UK.
Inside Cadbury Chocolate Secrets Unwrapped.
So the next documentary that I watched was Inside Cadbury Chocolate Secrets Unwrapped, which I gave 2 stars on Letterboxd. Another documentary that I've decided to watch, and while this one is a lot shorter than the previous documentary I watched, which was Living with Chucky, that came with a running time of 1 hour 40 minutes, Inside Cadbury Chocolate Secrets Unwrapped came with a running time of just 45 minutes, and also was a documentary that was released all the way back in 2019. This documentary has recently been released on Netflix here in the UK. Firstly, what I have learned about Cadbury chocolate in this documentary, well, I learned you can get a PhD in chewing. Did not know that. Therefore, may I ask where it is I can sign up to get a PhD in chewing? Secondly, I also learned how dangerous cream eggs are for children. Just one cream egg has the amount of daily sugar intake that a child is allowed in a day. It is a good job that Cadbury only sells these cream eggs between January and April each year. Also, this documentary does feature someone battering a cream egg. Now, I'm not saying battering a cream egg as in someone got a cream egg and started punching it to death. I mean battering a cream egg as in fish and chip shops across the country are deep frying cream eggs and selling them to consumers. Now, a fair few years ago, I did see this being advertised on a fish and chip shop window. I sadly never got the chance to try this, however, though. If in 2026 I see a fish and chip shop selling these, I am going to give this a go in 2026 for sure. Let's hope my mouth doesn't have a sensory overload while I eat that. But do I recommend this documentary? Yeah, sure, it is informative and lots of information about the history of Cadbury's and how their chocolate bars are produced as well, which is always interesting to see. And yes, this documentary does feature the iconic gorilla advert from the Cadbury advert in the late 2000s. You know, the one with the gorilla that vibes with Phil Collins' song In the Air Tonight. Anyway, Inside Cadbury Chocolate Secrets Unwrapped is streaming now on Netflix in the UK.
Under the Boardwalk.
Next film I watched this week was Under the Boardwalk, which I gave 2.5 stars over on Letterboxd. Under the Boardwalk is a film that released back in 2023, and it's the first time that I have watched this since its 2023 release. And what is interesting, and I do agree with other Letterboxd members here about this film had a very limited theatrical run, to the point that even I didn't get the chance to watch this on the big screen in 2023. The movie is also produced by Paramount Animation, the same company behind the recent Smurfs film, which, by the way, I thought was terrible, especially when it came to the animation style. Whereas the animation style in this movie, I actually loved this for a kids movie / family friendly movie. I loved how clean and fresh and crisp the animation looked and felt on screen. It made the crowd characters look and feel so stood out here as well as the human extras that we see appear on screen throughout the film. Under the Boardwalk does come with a running time of 1 hour 27 minutes, so it is a nice and easy movie to watch that doesn't outstay its welcome. It does have some musical elements in here as well, and what is funny is I read one review from a Letterboxd user who simply put West Side Story, and I agree, this is like a C version of West Side Story. You do have a star-studded lineup who lends their voices for this film as well, with the likes of Michael Cera, Keke Palmer, Jim Cummings and Russell Brand all lending their voices for this movie. Maybe the whole thing with Russell Brand is the reason why this movie had such a short theatrical run at the time. Nevertheless though, I still enjoyed this movie a lot though, better than I thought it would be. Would I recommend watching Under the Boardwalk? Yes, definitely. I think it is a fantastic movie filled with a bit of warmth and heart went into this movie. The story is also easy to follow, and if someone has children and looking for something to put on for them, then this is definitely ideal to watch. Under the Boardwalk is now streaming on Netflix in the UK and also available to on digital platforms to buy and rent.
The Wrong Paris.
Next movie I watched was The Wrong Paris, which I gave 2.5 stars over on Letterboxd. So The Wrong Paris has been recently released on streaming service Netflix around the world. And so I checked this one out. Did I enjoy The Wrong Paris? Well, I didn't like it too much. Yes, I will admit there was some fun moments in here which viewers watching this movie will enjoy. And again, there are some funny moments within the film, which again, some viewers will find funny, but it really depends on the viewer and what they genuinely find fun and funny, because not all the scenes and jokes will land with some viewers watching this. For me, I found this to be too corny, too cheesy, and also a little over the top at times. There are only 2 actors in this who I recognise from their child acting days, as I have seen both of these actors in kids shows when I was a kid. The first being Miranda Cosgrove, who played Carly in iCarly, played Megan in Drake and Josh, and also played a character in another Netflix movie that was released recently titled Mother of the Bride, and also played the character of Summer in the movie School of Rock, which starred Jack Black as well. The other child actor I recognised in this was Madison Pettis, who played a character in a Disney Channel show years ago called Corey in the House. Anyone remember that show? I would like to say she played the role of Sophie, the president's daughter, in that show, also known as America's Angel. I think that was her catchphrase in the show from what I remember, but aside from that, that is the only 2 people I recognise in this film. I did feel as though, given the running time, which clocks in at 1 hour 47 minutes, the pacing was all over the place, a little messy at times. It was also rather generic in terms of storytelling, but that being said though, the chemistry on screen was great, and as mentioned, there are some moments in here which some viewers will find fun, and some jokes in here that viewers will find funny when they watch this film. Is The Wrong Paris a film I could see me watching and revisiting again in the future? I really don't think so, sadly, but I did enjoy this the film for what it was worth, and the soundtrack within the film was also rather decent as well, which is great. Would I recommend watching The Wrong Paris on Netflix? Well, if you're stuck on something to watch and you want to kill some time and put something fun on, then sure, give this a watch, but I wouldn't rush to go and see this movie. On Netflix, so it's not that special. The Wrong Paris is now streaming over on Netflix worldwide.
The Strangers 2008.
Yes, I did rewatch The Strangers from 2008. I gave it 2.5 stars over on Letterboxd. The first time I watched this movie was all the way back in May 2024. I have rewatched it again in September 2025, and safe to say that given what I had put in my first review for The Strangers 2008, it didn't have the same knock-on effect as it did the first time I watched this movie back in May 2024. Even though it has been a long time since I last saw this movie, but the scenes I have seen in this once again, it almost felt like I had watched this literally one day ago, because I remember every scene and every jump scare in this film as if I watched this one day ago. It is still a decent thriller / horror movie to watch, and I did enjoy revisiting this, but it just didn't have the same knock-on effects like it did the first time when I watched this, which is unfortunate. But The Strangers 2008 is streaming now on Amazon Prime Video here in the UK.
The Strangers Pray at Night.
I also rewatched The Strangers Pray at Night as well, which I gave 2 stars over on Letterboxd. The Strangers Pray at Night is a follow-up film, not a direct follow-up, but it is a follow-up film, a sequel to 2008's The Strangers, and I have now watched this movie, revisited this movie 3 times in total. The last time I watched this was around the same time I first watched The Strangers, which was in May 2024, and then before that I watched The Strangers Pray at Night, well, first introduced to the movie around 2023. I loved watching this in 2023 when I first watched this. I loved watching it in 2024 when I last watched this, and now in September 2025 I still enjoy going back and revisiting this movie. It is better than the original Strangers movie from 2008, and definitely better than the more recent Strangers Chapter 1 movie, which came out roughly a year ago, which does remind me I should go back and revisit that movie, given that Chapter 2 releases at the end of September, and I am kind of curious to see what the rest of the trilogy has in store, even if it is going to be a crap trilogy. The Strangers Pray at Night, though, is now streaming over on Amazon Prime Video here in the UK.
The Conjuring Last Rites.
I've also watched The Conjuring Last Rites this week, which I gave 3 stars over on Letterboxd. The Conjuring Last Rites is the final movie, within the main Conjuring timeline. Now, I say this, but it seems every time a movie studio is like, yeah, this is going to be the last one, it always seems to be the case that some years later, the movies will get resurrected, and there is a lot of examples I can give to you. The Saw franchise had a final chapter only for them to make more Saw movies later down the line. Shrek franchise, Shrek 4 was supposed to be the final installment, and now we are getting a Shrek 5. Friday the 13th has had a final chapter, and again, more movies in that franchise were made after that final chapter was released. And another example I can give is Camp Rock. Camp Rock 2 was titled The Final Jam. Now, it is being heavily reported that the movie is making a comeback with Demi Lovato and the Jonas Brothers for Camp Rock 3. So, you see, when a movie studio says that this will be the final story that they are telling about the Warrens in the Conjuring universe, I wouldn't hold your breath, because, not to spoil the ending here, but while the ending seemed final and satisfying to watch, but I'm sure someone out there who follows these true stories about the Warrens probably already has ideas on how to reboot the main Conjuring movies. I don't, as I don't follow the true life cases of the Warrens, but I am sure that if I did and I saw all the Conjuring movies, and I would have made up an idea for a new Conjuring movie that features the Warrens, which they haven't covered in the movies. And for the record, I have seen all the Conjuring movies from the main timeline, and even the spin-offs as well. Speaking of, I have had this movie planned to watch at the cinema for the last few weeks since its release, and I had plans to go back and rewatch the franchise from the main timeline to the spin-off movies, but because life gets in the way and I didn't have a lot of time to go back and rewatch the franchise, I have decided to just watch this one for now. That being said, however, I do plan to rewatch the franchise sometime soon, especially as spooky season is now fast approaching. Also, I would like to add that despite this being the final Conjuring movie in the main timeline, there is still room for them to make spin-offs in the franchise, like continuing on the Annabelle franchise, for example. I will also say that Conjuring Last Rites was made on a budget of $55 million. At the time of doing this review, it has crossed the $330 million mark at the worldwide box office. So safe to say that this is doing well at the box office, and fans have enjoyed this movie a lot. The Conjuring Last Rites does come with a running time of 2 hours 14 minutes, and there are times that it does feel like it's running time. There are some jump scares in here which are decent. Might have been 1 or 2 in here that did get me a couple of times throughout the running time. Ben Hardy I thought was rather decent and a standout performer in the movie as the boyfriend of Judy Warren, the daughter of Ed and Lorraine Warren. I did think the cast overall did a great job in this movie. We do see the birth of Judy and what happens in the lead up to her birth, and how her birth comes back to haunt Ed and Lorraine Warren years later. And we find out the reason why they stopped doing these investigations in 1986. All in all, a very interesting movie that was based on true events. Would I recommend The Conjuring Last Rites? Yeah, if you are a fan of horror or a fan of this franchise as a whole, then I would recommend it. As mentioned earlier in the review, it does bring this main timeline of Conjuring movies to a satisfying end and closure. And I know there are probably a lot more stories to tell, which they will be able to tell through spin-offs. And also, from what I have heard recently, there is also set to be a TV series in the works that is set in the Conjuring universe as well. So safe to say that the main timeline has ended, but the franchise itself will continue to live on. Will I be purchasing the movie to buy and keep on digital later this year? Yes, definitely so, especially as I do have the other movies on digital from this franchise, which I bought recently. The Conjuring Last Rites is now showing in cinemas and theatres worldwide.
The Roses.
And the final movie I've watched this week is The Roses, which I gave 4 stars over on Letterboxd. I saw the trailer for The Roses a couple of months back, and as soon as I saw the first trailer, I put this movie straight on the watch list on Letterboxd and knew I was going to have a good time with this movie, and I was going to look forward to watching this film as well. and I actually did enjoy this movie more than I thought I would. I was sat in a near-on packed-out cinema screening, which made the cinema going experience watching this with a crowd of people even better. It has dialogue in here that is comedic, witty, and downright banterous, and it did get a lot of laughs from the cinema audience in the screening I was in. There was a couple of bits of dialogue in here that even I myself laughed out loud at as well. Benedict Cumberbatch, Olivia Colman, Kate McKinnon, and Nishiti Gatwa all star in this movie about a couple played by Cumberbatch and Colman, who end up at loggerheads with each other after both of their lives take different turns and directions. Colman's character, her career is starting to take off, and she is opening up and branching out her businesses a lot further, while Cumberbatch's character loses his job, becomes a stay-at-home dad, and ends up building a house which takes 3 years to build for his family to stay in. And might I add that the house they do end up living in is the best looking house I have ever seen in any movie I have ever watched in my entire life. I think for me, the third and final act in this film was brilliant and held a lot of the strongest dialogue for sure. Midway through the movie, there was some scenes for me that did feel like they were dragging a little, but that aside though, I still had a good time with this film. Is The Roses a movie I would recommend watching? For sure it is. If you are into comedy movies or rom-coms, then definitely do go and see this. Highly recommend seeing this one with a crowd. Makes the experience of seeing this a lot better. The running time does clock in at around 1 hour 40 minutes. Will I be watching The Roses again? Yes, I will revisit and rewatch this movie again. However though, I won't buy the movie on digital when it does release later this year on digital, because this is a Searchlight Pictures movie, which means this will become available to stream on Disney Plus at some point in the near future. Therefore, I will definitely watch it again when it hits Disney Plus internationally later this year. But The Roses is now currently showing in cinemas and theatres worldwide. And that is it for this week's episode of the Movie Wrap Up. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to like, comment and subscribe if you are new around here and want to become a Stevo. I'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday the 16th of September, 8 PM UK time is when I'll be back with a music wrap up where I'll be talking about Jade and her latest and debut album, That's Showbiz Baby, which came out on Friday the 12th of September, and I've now listened to it, and I'm not going to give away any spoilers as to what I thought about it. So if you want to know what I thought about it, make sure you tune in and watch that music wrap-up video that's coming out on Tuesday the 16th of September 2025 at 8 PM UK time. Check it out then. But until then though, from me, it's goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys again in my next YouTube video.